Hi, I'm ajhoge, the author of Effortless English, Learn to Speak English Like a Native. I teach independent, intelligent, adult English learners like you to speak English powerfully and confidently. Join my VIP program at effortlessenglishclub.com. That's effortlessenglishclub.com. This month, VIP members get a special discount on my pronunciation course. In fact, next week I'm sending out an email only to my VIP members so that you will get a special discount. Only VIP members. Special discounts on my pronunciation course. Learn to speak with a clear, understandable North American accent. That's only for my VIP members. Join my VIP program at effortlessenglishclub.com. All right. We're right now live on Facebook, also recording the show today for YouTube and the Effortless English Club blog. Welcome, live viewers on Facebook, and welcome to all of you who will watch the recording. Now today we have a special show. We're starting something new. I talked about this during my last live show on Facebook. And we're doing something called the Effortless English Book Club. Effortless English Book Club. And it's going to be just like taking a course at a university. Like an English literature course where you would read a book or books, and then you would study that book and discuss the book and ask questions about it. So this is what native speakers do in their own English classes, right? So when I went to university, kind of a long time ago, I took English classes, and so at that level, mostly what we did is literature. We read books. The teacher gave us a book assignment, and we'd have to read the book, and each week, during each class, we would discuss what we read, usually chapter by chapter. So, our first book is Animal Farm by George Orwell. Animal Farm by George Orwell. And today is our first book club. So we're going to discuss chapter 1. If you watch the recording of this, or if you have not read chapter 1 yet, it's okay. Just get the book anytime and read chapter 1. But I'm going to help you today understand chapter 1. I'll discuss a little bit of the vocabulary. I'll give you a summary of chapter 1. And then we'll talk about the main ideas. And I'll give you my analysis, my understanding of the meaning of chapter 1. All right, let's go. Animal Farm. Let's first just talk about chapter 1, the main plot, the main ideas. What happens in chapter 1? Animal Farm. All right, so chapter 1. Chapter 1 is really an introduction for Animal Farm. And in chapter 1, we are introduced to not all, but most of the main characters. We're introduced to the setting, where, the location that this takes place. And we're introduced to this world, because this is kind of a fantasy world, right? It's a world of intelligent, talking animals. That's why it's called Animal Farm. So let's just go through the beginning, and we'll get the general idea of chapter 1, and then we'll discuss the deeper meaning, because this book most definitely has a much deeper meaning. It's not just a funny story about animals. All right, so it begins. Mr. Jones of the Manor Farm had locked the hen houses for the night. So we're on a farm. The name of the farm is Manor Farm. That's just the name, Manor Farm. M-A-N-O-R, Manor Farm. Mr. Jones is the human farmer who owns the farm. All right, so Mr. Jones, in the beginning, we have Mr. Jones, and he's drunk. Drinking too much. And Mr. Jones he was drinking beer, and he walks, stumbles, walks drunkenly to his bed, and he goes to sleep. When he goes to sleep, all of the farm animals, that's when they all come together, right? Because they all talk, and they're intelligent. And I think Mr. Jones doesn't realize that these are actually special animals. They're smart, intelligent animals that can talk to each other. This is the fantasy part, okay? So Mr. Jones goes to bed. When Mr. Jones goes to bed, all the animals come to the barn to have a meeting, a special meeting. And why do they have a meeting? Because one of the pigs, an old pig, kind of the top pig on the farm, calls a meeting. He wants to discuss a dream that he had. So this pig is named Major. Major's an old pig. He's described as a prize middle white boar. A boar is a male pig, right? Not female. It's a male pig, a boar. So boars have tusks, right? They have little horns, in the wild especially. Boars can actually be quite dangerous animals. So he's a white boar. Prize white boar means he's like really big and strong and looks good. So old Major, he's an old pig. He calls the meeting. He tells all the animals, come to the meeting and let me tell you about my dream. And all the animals are excited because they're always interested in Major's ideas because he's an old pig. He's respected. All right, so then we got George Orwell, the writer, describes inside the barn, there's a bed of straw, there's a little area of straw, and Major is on top of it. He's on top of the bed of straw. There's a lantern, there's a light hanging from the ceiling next to him. It says he's 12 years old, that's old for a pig, and rather stout. Stout, there's a good vocabulary word. So he's a stout pig. Stout means kind of wide and large. It means large-bodied. Right? We can describe people as being stout. It's not the same as fat. Okay, fat, that's just like a big belly and is all that soft. When we describe a person as stout, it more has the feeling that their whole body's kind of large. Their bones, their muscles. Maybe they're a little fat, but they're also just large in general. So it tends to give the idea of fairly strong as well. Stout. All right, so then all the other animals come in. Then we are introduced to many of the main characters. This is what happens next. So as the animals come into the room, George Orwell, the writer, describes and gives names to some, I'd say most of the major characters. Not all, but many of them. All right, so first come 3 dogs come in. Bluebill, Jessie, and Pincher. And then pigs. The pigs are not named here, but the pigs later will become really the major characters in this story. But the other pigs are not named, only Major in this chapter 1. The hens, those are the female chickens. Pigeons come in. Sheeps and cows. None of those have names. And then we have 2 horses. Both have names. Boxer and Clover. Boxer and Clover. So Clover is a stout, motherly mare. So stout, again, remember, large-bodied and strong. A mare is a female horse. A female horse is called a mare. So Clover is a female, a large, stout, female horse. And then Boxer is an enormous beast. Enormous means huge, very, very big. So Clover's kind of big. Clover's stout, the female horse. But the male horse, Boxer, is huge, really, really, really big. A beast is like a wild animal, like a strong animal. So he's a huge animal, an enormous beast. His name is Boxer. He's an important character. And then George Orwell describes what he looks like. And he says that Boxer's not so intelligent. He's not stupid, but he's just not of a high intelligence. But everyone respects Boxer, the big horse, because he has steadiness of character. Steadiness of character. That means he's reliable. He's reliable. Steadiness means not changing. It's kind of reliable, not changing. And character, when you're using it as an adjective to describe someone, he has, or even if you use it as a noun, actually, it's a noun. Then it's, we should say he has steadiness of character. It means he has character. He has virtue. He's a good horse. Or if you say a person has character, would say they have goodness, really. So steadiness of character gives you the idea that he's a good, reliable, trustworthy horse. All right. Then next, there's a goat named Muriel, not so important. There's a donkey named Benjamin. He's the oldest animal on the farm, Benjamin is. Benjamin the donkey. And he's the worst tempered. Worst tempered. So worst tempered means he usually has a bad mood. He's not a positive. He's kind of negative and grumpy a lot. He's bad tempered. But he's not mean. He's just kind of in a bad mood a lot. Okay? He's not a happy guy or a happy donkey. All right, then finally the next, some chickens come in, and then a last horse comes in named Molly. Molly is a young, pretty mare, so female, a young, pretty horse, Molly. And she kind of comes in and she flips her hair around trying to flirt probably with Boxer, I guess. Then a cat comes in. The cat comes in and just finds a warm place to sit. All right, so those are and there's one more character introduced, Moses, a raven, like a crow, those black birds. So those are the major characters that we meet in the first chapter, in chapter 1. So that part is just really introducing the characters at the beginning. Next comes the speech, and this is very important. The speech from Major, the old pig. And this speech is really what starts this story. So it's very important, and it has a much deeper meaning, which we'll discuss in a minute. So he begins, comrades. Important that he uses the word comrades. Comrades means like friends. He says, I had a dream, right? I had a dream. And it's my duty. I must tell you my dream because I'm old and I will probably die soon. And so I want you to know my dream, to know what I have learned. Now, the first thing he starts with is a persuasion technique. This is a technique that is very good for persuading people, for selling things. Advertisers use it. And he starts with pain. He starts with pain. He describes the pain of the animals. He says, what is the nature of our life? What is our life like here on the farm? And he says, let's face it, let's be honest. Our lives are miserable, super, super, super unhappy. And they're short. We have short, unhappy lives. Right? So he's reminding them of their pain. This is a very good persuasion technique. If you want to persuade people, first remind them of the pain in their life, of the pain of their problems, right? You got to first talk about the problem and why it's a big problem. And then he describes in detail about their pain. He talks about how most of them can never grow old because when they get older, they get killed by the farmer. Oh, that sounds terrible. He says, no animal in England is free. George Orwell was English, so this isn't a farm in England. The life of an animal is misery, unhappiness, and slavery. This is the truth. And then he starts asking questions. Why? Another powerful persuasion technique. You want to get people thinking, why, right? Because what he wants to do, of course, he has an answer. He has a solution. He wants to persuade them. He wants to sell them. He wants to convince them that he has the best solution. He knows what they should do. Right? But he can't just tell them immediately. That's less persuasive. It's less strong. So he says, our farm has a lot of food on it. And really, our farm should be a wonderful place. There's plenty of food and land for all of us. We should not suffer. We should not have to suffer. We should not have to work so hard and be so unhappy. And so then this is the next one, another very, very, very powerful persuasion technique. A lot of politicians use this one, and especially some of the worst dictators in the world have used this technique that he uses. And he says, what is the root of our problem? What is the one thing that's causing all of our problems? And he says man, meaning humans. Humans. This is called a scapegoat. A scapegoat is when you choose one group of people that are different than you, like an outside group, and you blame all of the problems of society. All of the problems of society on that one group. So here he says the problem is all of us animals are wonderful, all animals are great, but humans are the evil ones. Humans are the source, the cause of all of our problems. All of our unhappiness is caused by one thing only, and that's humans. And then he says if we remove humans, we get rid of all the humans, then all animals will never be hungry again. All animals will never have to work so hard again. All animals will be happy. We'll have this wonderful, perfect life if we only get rid of human beings. And then he starts saying lots of bad stuff about humans, that they don't make eggs, they can't make milk, but then they take our food from us. You know, they eat our eggs, they eat our milk, they drink our milk. He makes us work. And then he only gives us back some of that for eating. So he's eating a bunch of our stuff and making us work and treating us badly, basically. And he just gives lots of examples about this. Then he says, I'm lucky because I have lived a long life, but many of you will not. Continuing in chapter 1. And really, again, this is the key point of his whole speech, is he says, all the evils of this life, all evil in the world is caused by only one thing, human beings. All evil caused by only one thing, human beings. If we only get rid of man, overnight, means instantly, immediately, we would become rich and free. Rich and free. So this is another very powerful persuasion technique, by the way, which is the super easy answer, right? That will solve all of your problems, everything, all unhappiness, all problems, all poverty, he's saying, right? People being poor. Every single problem, every unhappiness that the animals suffer will be gone if they only get rid of man, if they get rid of humans. Not only that, but they will all become, every one of them will become rich. They'll all be rich if they just get rid of humans. And they'll all be totally free if they just get rid of humans. So this is his solution. And so finally he says our solution is rebellion. Rebellion, like revolution. Rebellion means revolution. Right? In the original Star Wars with Luke Skywalker, right? They were called the rebels. The rebels, right? They were fighting against the main government, the Empire. So rebellion, we have to fight against the humans and get rid of all of them, which of course means kill them. Or at least drive them out, push them out of the farm. And then all our problems will be solved. We'll all be rich and free. Then he says, you must never listen to any other idea. Only this one. This is the only solution. You must never listen to any other solution ever. Never listen to anyone that tells you that man and animals can work together. He says, never listen to that. Never listen to that. Never try to work together with humans. And never listen to anyone who says that animals and humans can both have happy lives together. All men are enemies, he says, the pig. All men, all. So it's not just the one human, it's not just this farmer at this farm who's maybe a bad guy, but it's all humans everywhere are enemies and evil. And the opposite is also true, he says. All animals are friends. All animals are comrades. So everywhere in the world, every animal is good. Everywhere in the world, every human is evil, is what he's saying. Okay. Then this is kind of amusing. There's a kind of black humor, we call it, a dark humor in Animal Farm. George Orwell. As we'll discuss in a minute, George Orwell is this is a very political book, and he's criticizing a political system and political techniques that he feels are very dangerous. And so you're seeing this, like Major the pig is giving us, the perfect, simple solution to everything. There's one group that's evil, they're all evil. There's this other group, the animals, that are all good. If you just get rid of the humans, we're all going to be perfect and rich, and life will be perfect. It'll be like heaven on earth. This is called utopia, right? Perfection, a perfect society, a perfect life, everything. But then, so he says all animals are friends. But then immediately there's a little problem, because there's a couple rats that come into the barn. And guess what happens? When the dogs and the cat see the rats, they get excited, they want to chase the rats and attack them, right? Because that's the nature of cats and dogs, is they hunt rats, they hunt mice, they're predators. And so there's this big kind of, there's a big lots of noise and everything, and then Major the pig says, calm down, we have to vote. Right? We have to vote to see, are the rats animals like us in our group, or are they not? And they vote, but the dogs and the cat, they vote against it. Okay? They say, no, they want to attack the rats and eat them, right? Because that's what they do. But all the other animals say yes. So then Major says, okay, the rats and the rabbits are also animals, and we are all equal. And we are all good, and the humans are evil. So he says, your duty, what you must do, is always be the enemy of humans. He says, anything, then he gives some rules. This is important, because this part of the story, we will see it again many times in the future of this story in other chapters. Rule number 1, whatever, meaning any creature, that goes upon 2 legs is an enemy. Right? So meaning anything that walks on 2 legs, humans, is an enemy. So anything with 2 legs that walks on 2 legs is an enemy. And then the next rule, whatever goes upon 4 legs or has wings is a friend. So this is the rules of their new perfect society. Enemies, anything that walks on 2 legs. Friends, 4 legs or wings. This is the rule. His rule. Major's rule. Okay, then he says, then he makes some more rules. These are important because you're going to see what happens later. After we conquer, after we defeat the humans and beat them, no animal must ever live in a house or sleep in a bed or wear clothes or drink alcohol or smoke tobacco or use money or trade, like do business. So he's saying all the habits of man, humans, are evil. Everything that humans do is evil. Therefore, we cannot do any of them. No, it's against the rules. So you cannot drink alcohol. You cannot smoke. You cannot touch money. You cannot use money. You cannot do trade, business. You cannot sleep in a bed. You cannot sleep in a house. You cannot wear clothes. Okay, so these are the rules for the animals, for their perfect society. And no animal must ever kill another animal. No animal must ever kill another animal. Another rule of the perfect society. We'll see in a minute. There's a problem with that, of course. And then finally, the big rule, and this one is very important for us now in our current human society. All animals are equal. All animals are equal. And of course, equal means same. All animals are the same. All animals are equal. Very, very important. Then he talks about his dream. And he describes, this is the next, by the way, very powerful persuasion technique. So he talked about the pain. Next, he talked about the one enemy that causes all the problems. Right? This simple enemy it's just this enemy only that causes all the problems, all their evils. And then he says, if we get rid of this enemy, the solution, then life will be perfect. Everything will be absolutely perfect. We'll never have any problems again, ever. And then finally, this is the pleasure part. This is another thing you should do if you're trying to persuade people, is then tell them the dream. The dream. After your solution, what will their life be like? So then he starts describing, I had this dream, and man is gone, and all the animals are living together. They're all equal. They're all happy. Everything is wonderful. And I heard a song. And in my dream, there was this beautiful song. And then he sings the song, and the song basically describes this, that, everybody, all the animals are now rich, everything's perfect, we got rid of the humans, all animals are equal, all animals love each other, all animals are nice to each other all the time, there are no problems anymore, everything is perfect. And when they sing the song, all the animals gets excited. When he sings the song, they all love it. And even the stupid animals learn it very quickly. And they all start singing the song together. Ah, beasts of England, beasts of Ireland, beasts of every land and clime. And he's got the whole song in there. I'm not going to sing the whole thing. But they all sing it, and then they sing it again. And I think he says they sing it 5 times because they're so excited about the song. So this is another propaganda technique, another persuasion technique used, using music and songs and public gatherings, things like that. But then all the singing wakes up the farmer. The farmer is sleeping, remember, and he hears the singing, and he wakes up. He thinks there's a fox trying to attack the chickens, so he shoots his gun at the barn, and it scares all the animals, and they all leave and run back to their beds and go to sleep. And that's how chapter 1 ends. Alright, so that's the basic description. Let's go back and talk about what this means. I'll give you, we're going to talk about 2 things with meaning. One, I'll give you what the kind of general meaning that even that George Orwell meant. What did he mean by all of this? And this is very obvious. George Orwell wrote about, the meaning of this story. George Orwell wrote about politics. Of course, George Orwell also wrote 1984, which is another great book really criticizing the same political system, which is communism, socialism. And the thing is, George Orwell was a socialist, but he saw what happened in the Soviet Union. He saw what happened with Maoist China, and he realized, oh my God, this is horrible. Millions and millions and millions of people murdered. And even Germany, Nazi Germany, is a National Socialist Party. So again, another form of socialism. So I believe, I'd have to really research Orwell more, but I believe he still believed in he was hoping that there could be some kind of socialism, but he saw that the reality of it was usually mass murder. And we'll see that, of course, in this story as well later. So first I'll talk about some of the obvious meanings of this book, not my personal opinions, really more what George Orwell was talking about. What did he mean? And if you don't believe me, you can go look this up. You can read about this. And then I will talk about my own personal, the meaning I get from it. Now, my meaning from this might be different from yours. right? In fact, it should be. And this is one of the great things about books and literature in general, is that while there certainly are clear themes, clear messages from the writer in many books, good books, there also is a lot of room for you to find your own meaning, right? I mean, for example, religious books, people read the Bible, and there are a lot of very clear messages in the Bible, pretty obvious. Thou shalt not kill, the Ten Commandments, that kind of stuff. But of course, also, though, 100 people can read the Bible and find lots of different meaning. Each person will find a different meaning based on their own experience. And this is one of the great things, especially, this is a thing that great books do. Great books have deep, deep, deep levels of meaning. And they will connect to your personal life in some way. And so every one of us will have our own ideas or interpretation of these books. And that's good. So when I'm talking about my personal opinions or my personal meaning, it's just to give you something to think about. I'm not telling you, you don't have to believe what I believe. Of course not. I'm not trying to even convince you to do so. I'm just sharing it, so give you something to think about. And then, maybe in the comments, I'll read some of the live comments here on Facebook and get some of your ideas. So let's go through quickly. I'll give you some of the major ideas from chapter 1, and then we can discuss with some of the comments live. All right, so what is this thing? Why is this a cartoon with animals and a farm? Okay, so this is about capitalism and communism, socialism. Okay, so the farm basically means the economy, right? It's the nation. In this case, it's the nation. Now, he was very much criticizing the Soviet Union, okay? This story, as we will see, has a lot of connections to the history of Russia, the Soviet Union, communist Russia. So later we will meet some characters that are very obviously supposed to be Joseph Stalin and Trotsky. They're not in chapter 1. I would say that Major, pretty obviously, is Karl Marx. Okay? Because Major does not lead the revolution, which we'll see in the future. But he gives the big philosophy, right? He gives the big speech, he gives the philosophy, he identifies the one enemy, humans, and he makes this picture of the perfect world, the utopia, the perfect world on earth, heaven on earth. So this farm is like, a nation, any nation. Now, it happens to be, he was English, so maybe someone England, but it could be any nation. It could be Russia. Many, many, many people believe, this farm represents Russia, even though it's set in England. It could be Maoist China. It could be Cambodia. It could be Venezuela today, right? That's wherever. But basically, it represents the nation. The animals represent who? The workers, the common people, the regular people. And, of course, the farmer is the owner. He owns the farm. So he's what today people call the 0.1% or the 1%, right? He's the guy at the top. The farmer. So then, the various characters in chapter 1, really, there's not so much, I'd say Boxer, the big, strong horse, is really kind of like a laborer, like a physical worker, right? Someone who's not so smart, so he's not working in some high-level job. He does hard physical work. He's a good guy, strong, people respect him. Later, we'll get more ideas about some of these characters are connected to real historical people, like I mentioned before. Some of the future characters we'll meet definitely are connected to Stalin and Trotsky. And in this one, I'd say the only very obvious connection is that Major is Karl Marx. All right. And very much like Karl Marx, he uses much of the communist language. Comrades, right? Everybody's a comrade, a brother, a friend. And he describes how miserable their lives are. And this is the danger, by the way, and this is my own personal interpretation, but I think it's also pretty clear that Orwell was writing about this, is that the danger is, the problem is true. They do live kind of sad lives. They do get killed. They do get their stuff taken from them. So many of the problems that Major describes are real problems. And so we do, like any normal person, sympathizes with the animals, right? I mean, in chapter 1, they're sympathetic, right? There's the mean old farmer who's a drunk, who's a bad guy, and they don't have great lives, The farmer kills them and eats them sometimes. He takes the eggs from the chickens. He makes the horses do hard work. So, yeah, exactly. There are definitely problems. So that part, this is the part this is the danger in a way, because this is the part that all sort of dictators in history and all the kind of the most evil ideologies and political systems start with a problem. If everybody's happy and rich and doing well, usually there's no need for a revolution, and it's much tougher for some horrible dictator or communist system to come in to take over a country that's already happy and rich. It doesn't happen usually. If we look at history, what happens? It's usually where there are huge problems and lots of miserable people. So certainly this story is mostly connected to the Soviet Union and Russia at the time of the Russian Revolution, the Communist Revolution, was pretty miserable, right? There was they lost World War I. They left, right? They dropped out of World War I. There were just lots and lots of poor people, lots of misery. It was not a happy place. Same with the farm. Okay. So then, of course, like all of this, he's talking about animals, but of course, we're meant to think and to imagine the human situation, right? So the animals are similar to the poor. The people who are the poor and the workers at the bottom, who have the hardest lives. That's who the animals represent in this story. I don't really know who the middle class is supposed to be in this story, but we'll see. Because I only read chapter 1 also. I know the story. I read the story the whole thing a long time ago, but I don't remember. So maybe we'll find out. Maybe he just ignored that, because most communists don't really, the hard socialists tend to put the middle class with the rich people as enemies, and it's only the people at the bottom who are the friends and the good ones. All right, so anyway, there's the long thing describing the misery, the unhappiness of the animals. This, of course, represents the misery and the unhappiness of poor people, peasants. In his time, he was talking about, poor farmers, poor workers. And then he gives a speech very much like the Communist Manifesto, right? Rebellion, fight against our enemy. In the Communist Manifesto, Marx said that it was the bourgeoisie, right? It was the owners, people who own land, people who own businesses, right? The capitalists. Those were the enemy. And if we just got rid of them, if we could just kill them all, because that was what actually happened, if we just kill them all and get rid of them, then we'll have a perfect society, and suddenly all the poor people will become rich and happy and free. So this is the meaning of the speech, if we think of it in terms of humans. All right, and it's very, if you've read the Communist Manifesto, it's quite similar to Major's speech. Again, think all men are enemies. So it's the same idea with communism. It was all the bourgeoisie, the middle and upper classes were enemies. Every one of them. It's not like, oh, maybe this one's nice and that one's mean. It's not about individual human beings. It's just anyone in that group is evil. Hitler used the same technique. He was a National Socialist, so same technique. And of course, with Hitler, it was the Jews. In Pol Pot in Cambodia, again, it was the intellectuals. So they murdered everybody, almost everybody that had a college degree. They murdered people just because they had glasses, because they saw them as part of the intelligent class. So here it's all men, but right, this is the technique this is probably number one, the really, really, really dangerous technique, where you immediately need to be terrified when you see a political group of any kind, identifying one huge group of people and saying they're all evil. And if we get rid of them, we'll all be happy. We see it now. right? There's still groups that, oh, it's the 1%. Right. Well, the 1% actually includes lots of doctors and lawyers and entrepreneurs and whole lots of people who are, many of whom are very, very nice people and good people. Even billionaires, is every single billionaire evil? No, many have created useful, good businesses. Are some billionaires evil? Absolutely. But the danger is when it's this group, it's the scapegoating, right? And this is what we'll see this as the story goes, but this is one of the key points of chapter 1, the scapegoating. And then the next part of it is it's kind of the other side of the scapegoating, right? First you identify the one group, they're all evil. We have to get rid of all those evil, horrible people in that group. And then everyone else, our group, is all wonderful and good and we're all equal. This is the other side. We're all good and equal and wonderful. They're all evil and horrible. And again, what I find it's a nice little bit of humor he has there with the rats, because right away, what I believe, I think it's pretty clear what Orwell is saying is that equality is bullshit. There is no equality. There's no equality, and that claiming that all animals are equal is insanity. It's insanity, and we see that immediately, right from the beginning, before they have their revolution. We see it with the dogs and cats and the rats and the rabbits. Because dogs and cats are predators, and they naturally, by instinct, attack and kill and eat rats. So saying that they're equal and that they're the same is insanity. And the idea that rats and dogs and cats can all just live peacefully together and they can be exactly equal, we see immediately that that's not going to work, right? You can already see there's a problem, because each animal has its own nature. And some of it's genetic, biological, whatever. But each animal has its own different nature. They're all different. We see this now with this whole gender craziness in the West, in America especially, that men and women are the same, and that they're exactly the same. There are 100 genders, and if a man says he's a woman, then he's a woman. It's bullshit. We all know it's bullshit. Each creature, each gender, lots of different groups. In fact, each individual person has their own nature, their own natural strengths, their own natural weaknesses, their own natural needs and desires. And so when the rats come in, instantly, the dogs and the cat want to attack them and eat them. That's what they do. It's their nature. You're never going to change it. And so his joke. They do change it temporarily. They do a vote. Okay, yes. But you can already see, maybe there's a future problem here. Will the dogs really respect that rule forever? Can we just force them to do that from a vote? And in fact, in general, will all the animals just stay exactly equal? If they do have their revolution and they get rid of the humans, do you think they'll actually all stay in this perfect equality forever? We can look at history, and we know this is a political and historical commentary, and we know, of course, no, it never happens. There's always hierarchy. There never will be equality. All right, so he goes on to describe the perfect world. Now, this is called utopia, and this is another key point, and another key danger, by the way. This is, again, my personal opinion, and the meaning I get from this. The danger of utopianism. Utopia is a perfect society, a perfect world, right? Perfect, what do we mean by perfect? Well, perfect according to whoever has the idea, whoever likes the idea. So for communists or socialists, the perfect utopia society, everybody's exactly equal. There's all kinds of utopias have been imagined. Maybe a religious group might imagine, the perfect utopia, everybody in the world is forced into this one religion and everyone does this one religion. People, all different groups at different times have had their vision of this perfect heaven on earth. The problem with every single one of them, as Orwell's hinting at here, he's only hinting in chapter 1, it becomes very clear in later chapters, but in chapter 1 we're getting a little hint with the rats and the dogs that utopianism is impossible, right? Because we're not perfect. We're not perfect. There's no perfect beings in the world, and therefore imperfect, not perfect beings, human beings, in the story animals, can never make a perfect society, right? I think that is one of the small messages there that will become bigger later in the story. He has the song with the animals singing the song, and that's the end of chapter 1. And again, like I said, I think the song, what he's kind of showing there, is the way that many revolutions, many big political movements use songs and parades, and we see it in North Korea, right? They might have these big, huge military parades. Hitler had these massive, shows with music and marching and all this stuff. It's a common technique because it's powerful. It's very emotional. It is a very persuasive thing. That's not always bad. It's not always evil. Sports events are like that, right? You go watch your favorite football team, soccer team. That shared group emotion is very, very powerful. It's very, very powerful. A concert, a music concert. This is one reason music concerts are very powerful, right? Because if you think about it, with a music concert, choose your favorite band. Whatever. I like, let's see, who have I seen lately? Let's say U2. Okay, so U2. If you just want quality of music, just the music quality only, the quality of Bono's voice singing, for example, listening to the recording is much better. The recording is usually the very highest quality. So why go to a concert? Because usually in a concert, you're sitting maybe far away. You can't see them that well. They're kind of small on the stage. You can't. The sound in this big, huge arena is not as good as your own home stereo at home, listening to it at home. So why do people go to concerts? Why are they so popular? And I do too. I love them. Well, it's the shared experience. It's that big, shared emotional experience. You're sharing the emotion and the music together with thousands of people, and it multiplies it. It makes it stronger, stronger, stronger. So it's very, very powerful. It's much more powerful than simply listening at home alone in your room. The sound quality is better at home, but the emotional quality is much more powerful at the concert. So I'm not saying that all these techniques have to be evil, right? I mean, I use some of these techniques for selling Effortless English. Every salesperson does. Every advertiser uses these techniques that I mentioned. So they're not bad or good techniques specifically, necessarily. I would say scapegoating is actually quite evil, especially when you talk about getting rid of people. Right? Our problems will be solved if we get rid of them, because that very quickly leads to killing people, which is evil. But the techniques of talking about people's pain, for example, and talking about your solution, and telling them about the good things they'll get from that solution, that's just normal persuasion, and you probably want to use that technique yourself to persuade people. But you need to persuade people, persuade people to do good things that will not hurt them and will not hurt other people. Evil people who want power, will do the opposite. They'll use these persuasion techniques to convince people to hurt other people. And that's evil, in my opinion. Well, I think most people. Alright, so you've just gotten my ideas on the meaning of chapter 1. I'm going to go now to Facebook and read some of your comments. Give me, you can ask me questions about, I'm going to ignore any question about something else. It has to be about Animal Farm. So if you have other English questions, that's fine, but I'm going to ignore them. I'm only going to read questions about Animal Farm Chapter 1, or you can put your own comment, your own ideas about Chapter 1, and I'll share them with the group and give you my thoughts about it. So let's go to the comments now. Okay, let's see. Right, okay. So this is a Russian commenter. I believe Russian. It looks like Russian language. It's crazy. Most of the rich people, the bourgeoisie, which were attracted by the Soviet government, were people who had gotten their property by working hard. But the government wanted everyone to be stupid and poor. Joseph Stalin was paranoid until he died. Yeah, I agree. So this is a good point, and this is the part of the danger of the scapegoating. Right? Saying, for example, all the bourgeoisie, all the people who own land or businesses or anything are evil, are the enemy. Well, it's just not true. It's a lie. So this is the problem with scapegoating. It's a lie. So it was all based on a lie, first of all. They weren't evil. Most of them and I'm sorry I can't read your name because I can't read Russian. Sorry. But most of them, yeah, they probably were good people. I wasn't alive, I wasn't in Russia at that time, but I can certainly say we have socialists in America who speak like this, and they say the same evil things about business owners. So they're saying I'm evil because I own a business and I'm an entrepreneur, and I've met lots of entrepreneurs, lots of small business owners. My brother-in-law owns an animal hospital. He's an animal doctor, a veterinarian. He's a very kind, good person and helps lots of people. He makes good money, but he's worked very hard to do so, and he also has a lot of employees, so he's helping lots and lots and lots of people who work at his vet clinic. And this is the case, I think, for most business people. So this is the problem with scapegoating. See, what happens is, with scapegoating, you find a few evil people. And without a doubt, let's say at the very top of business, I would say it's not just business, it's just power. To reach the top power, political or business, you've got to be a really tough person. You can't just be a sweet, nice person and become president of the United States, for example, or build a billion-dollar company. It doesn't mean you're evil, but you can't just be nice and weak. You've got to be tough, because you make a lot of enemies trying to do that. So right away, to get to that top of power, I'm not even saying it's bad, it's just necessary. I don't want that kind of power. I could never have that kind of power because I'm just not tough enough and mean enough. And I don't want it enough. So it attracts those kinds of people. And some of those people indeed are evil. Meaning they hurt lots of people and they don't care. Some of them even enjoy it. We know this. Of course it's true. There is evil in the world. There are evil people in the world, and many of them are very powerful. But, that's, again, this is the danger of the propaganda that is, these techniques is, especially scapegoating, is that there's a little bit of truth there, right? You can find that little bit, but then they say, oh, now it's all people in that group. Are there evil Jewish people? Of course there are. Are all Jews evil? Of course not, right? And you can choose any group like this. In America right now, we're seeing a lot with the kind of the left wing, the socialists, saying that all white people are evil. What they say is all white people are racist. All white people. Just by being white, you're racist. This is scapegoating. It's evil. If those people got in power, I have no doubt they would eventually start killing people. Mass murder is where this always ends up. That's why it is very, very dangerous. And what we saw in the Soviet Union was indeed mass murder. What we saw in Nazi socialist Germany, mass murder, Cambodia, and it's starting in Venezuela now. So very, 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 it's frightening. That's why I chose this book. Okay, let's go on. I don't even know who was better, Stalin or Hitler, so same commenter. Yeah, Hitler at least tried to work for Germany. And then, of course, they were destroyed. But, so, well, it's an interesting point. And it's not a bad argument in a way that Hitler at least seemed to... He focused on one group, the Jews, of course, which is horrid and evil. But in the rest of Germany, he really was trying to kind of help the rest of the German people. He's saying that Stalin really focused on his own people. He was so paranoid of losing power that he murdered... it's hard to say. The estimates are something like 20 million people. They clearly were both quite evil. I think mass murder is just evil in general. It doesn't matter. All right. Okay, this is a great comment. Again, I'm sorry I can't pronounce your name. It's C-E-M is your first name. This is a great point. I read Animal Farm when I was 11 years old, and now I realize I didn't get the point. I didn't understand the point of the book. Now I can understand the point of the book, and George Orwell is a great writer. What a great comment that is. That's a great comment. Because it is so true not only of this book, and not only of you, me as well. And I think this is one of the problems we have in school. I shouldn't scapegoat the schools completely, should I? But I think this is a problem that many schools have, I believe, in the United States. That they kind of... Like, I was forced to read a lot of kind of heavy books, serious books, right? Deep books. At a fairly young age. Now, I think some young people are more, I don't know, they're more deep or something. They may have more life experience, and therefore they can understand books like Animal Farm. But for me, like this reader, like this commenter from Facebook, Sam, or I'm sorry, I mispronounced your name, I couldn't really I didn't understand it. So these are great books with very serious messages. Even if you disagree, these are still important messages and ideas and powerfully written. But most 12-year-olds or 14-year-olds, even 16-year-olds just can't get it. So the point I'm making, by the way, is as an adult, I encourage you, go back and read some of those classic books. Maybe books you thought you hated when you read them in school. Oh, God, they made us read Shakespeare. Like they made us read Shakespeare in high school, for example. And again, I didn't like it. The language is very difficult. But now as an adult, go back and read Shakespeare and it's like, whoa, amazing, powerful. Same with Animal Farm. Agreed. When I was younger, I don't understand. It's kind of this thing about animals. I kind of understand the point, but I don't care. But I was just this kind of, clueless young person. I just didn't have much life experience. I didn't really understand it. Now I read it and it's powerful, and I see, certainly in my own country, things happening that are kind of like what Orwell is describing, criticizing. And so for me, it's a very powerful book. But there are many other books. Walden by Henry David Thoreau. It's an American writer. I read that in high school. I thought it was one of the most boring books I'd ever read. I just thought, what this book is, I hate this book. Now, it's probably my favorite book. I've read that book 5, 6, 7 times, maybe more as an adult, and appreciate it so much. So, I would say to anyone who reads Animal Farm now and doesn't like it, doesn't think it's that great, don't just immediately say, oh, this is a bad book. Maybe in a few years, come back to it, try it again. Or for any other book that, is kind of a famous book, a classic book, maybe for even in your own language, give it a try again. These books are classic for a reason. Because they have deep messages, they're very well written, they're powerful, and sometimes we're just not ready for these powerful books. And when we come back later with more life experience, sometimes we find, wow, these books can change our lives. So, okay, let's see. Okay, what do you think about, I'm not quite sure how that, I'm really looking for, okay, that's the system is like Big Brother. Hua War says. Well, exactly. So George Orwell wrote 1984. Big Brother comes from, that phrase, Big Brother, comes from George Orwell. From another of his books, 1984. 1984 is also a criticism of, I would say not just communism, it's really a criticism of what's called totalitarianism. It's total control of a population. Now, communism is totalitarian. It's one kind of totalitarian, but, we could imagine possibly other kinds. But it's basically, how does a tiny group at the top completely control a population? And that's what 1984 is about. I did not choose 1984 because it's a more difficult book. Honestly, too, it's a lot more depressing than Animal Farm. Animal Farm is a little funny. Because he's using animals, he has some dark humor. It has a similar message, very deep meaning, but it's a little lighter. It's also a simpler and shorter book, so I think it's better for us. But if you like, you can read 1984. Another book I want to do is Brave New World, which is a similar topic. How does a group of people control a population? Now, Brave New World, I feel, it's also very, very, very appropriate to our culture now. Probably, I would say that Animal Farm in 1984 are very strongly connected to the Soviet Union, socialism, communism, those kinds of control systems. Whereas Brave New World is really more about how the sort of democratic systems control populations. And they do it in a different, and yet, in many ways, just as powerful way. So we might do Brave New World as our next book, because I think it gives a nice, we really learn kind of the full techniques used by modern control systems. Well, this is an interesting point. Emmanuel Esposito says, I think animals are overall better than human beings because most people treat them badly, always. And I've seen them beaten and treated badly on the sidewalk in Germany. Well, actually, this is that's an interesting, that's actually, is a philosophical, even religious question, but even psychological question. And I just recently read a writer, I'm trying to remember who it was, Purucker? I can't remember. Anyway, reading a book about philosophy and religion and discussing exactly that. And this writer's opinion, and I agree with it actually, is that humans, we have a greater self-consciousness, right? We that as far as we can tell, animals don't. And that has given us the ability to do consciously, to choose consciously good, great good, or unfortunately, on the other side, we can also choose and do great evil. Whereas animals, you don't really think about it, right? Animals don't do evil and they don't do good. A lion isn't being evil when it attacks and kills a zebra. It's hungry. This is its nature. Just like in the an Animal Farm, right? The dogs don't want to attack the rats because they're evil. It's just that is their nature. That's what animals do. They're predators. Whereas a human being can decide to purposely cause pain. And see, the writer was talking about, I believe it was Purucker. If I remember it, I'll talk about it another time. But it doesn't matter who the writer was. But the point was this: that why is it? Why can we do great pain to people? Why can we be so evil? It's because we are more self-conscious. We're more aware of ourselves, right? How can that make us more evil or more good? Well, it's because of this. We can look at ourselves and we can understand what causes us pain, right? Whereas an animal will feel pain and kind of, it hurts, right? But we can say, let's say we get stabbed, we get stabbed with a knife in the arm. We can say, we realize this causes us pain. We realize we're suffering. We can compare the different kinds of pain and suffering that we have in our life. We can realize that some things cause much more suffering, some things cause less. And then because we're so intelligent, we can realize, I could do this to another person and cause them tremendous pain and get control of them that way, or cause them fear. Now, of course, this same ability gives us the ability to do good, because we can realize by examining ourselves and our own lives, we can realize what causes us greater happiness, what helps us. And we can then choose, I can do that same thing to other people and cause them greater happiness. So I would say, regarding that comment, I would say it depends on the person. I'd say we have greater extremes because we have so much more conscious choice as humans. And this is human nature. And every single one of us, Dr. Jordan Peterson, who's become quite well known recently, he's a professor of psychology up in Canada. Look for him on YouTube, he's got lots of stuff, but he talks about this, how not only individual humans, but every human being, every one of us, you and me, we have this ability inside of us. We have this ability to be evil and mean and cruel. And if we're honest in our life, we'll notice that sometimes we are kind of mean. No, we're not all Hitler, we're not murdering people, but sometimes we just get in a bad mood and we do something a little mean. I can remember doing it as a kid to my sister, right? And then, of course, at other times, we also do good things. But the thing is, we can choose, but we have this. This is the battle inside every person. Every religion talks about this, right? So, yeah, we can be very evil, but we can also be very good. We have saints and we have, evil, horrible people, and we have the whole range in between. So, yeah, I don't know if animals are better or worse, but clearly there's quite a difference. And the thing with animals, and kind of one point that in Animal Farm is, we have power over them. And so we can cause them great suffering. Or we can, I know people who are great animal lovers, and really, like I mentioned, my brother-in-law is an animal doctor. So he helps hurt animals, he takes care of them, he helps to ease their pain. So, we can also be very nice and kind to them. All right, maybe a couple more. All right, let's just go. I'm just going up here. Yeah, so Sam is kind of agreeing with me. You can't really compare humans and animals. And well, I agree. It's the consciousness, right? It's just a different level that makes us kind of. It's just very different, very, very different. Of course, we have an animal nature in us. Humans do, of course, but there's clearly something else. All right. I'm just going to go up a little higher because people were making comments quite a bit while I was talking, so I'm going to look at some of the other ones. Okay, just give me a second here. Okay, this is a good point. Here in Brazil, we have a type of socialism. We have the ideas of equality for all, but we suffer from violence and lack of free speech. Yeah, this thing of equality, I'm very much against. This is another word I feel is a dangerous word, especially now. The original, I can only speak from the American side. So like the American Revolution, the American Constitution, talked about equality. But what did they mean by equality? They meant a very, 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 very specific thing by when they said equality. They meant equality under the law. Equality under the law. And what it meant is that all laws apply to all citizens equally. Now, this is what they meant. They actually said all men, and at that time it was just all men. But the point being, though, that whatever the group is, everyone in the nation, all men, all animals, it just meant that if we have a law like you can't murder people, then it means that that law is the same for all. If you're rich, you still can't murder someone. If you're poor, you can't murder someone. If you do murder someone, then you should be treated equally by the law. So if a rich person murders someone, then they should go to jail. Let's say they go to jail for 5 years, if that's the normal thing, 10 years, or whatever it is, doesn't matter. And if a poor person murders someone, well, and the circumstances are the same, everything else is basically the same, well, they should get the same, the same thing should happen to them. They go to jail for the same amount of time, or they get the same punishment. Equality under the law, which, of course, I think that's the only way to have a society. It basically means, what's the law? It's just the rules, right? So it's just like playing a game. If we're going to play, it's like we're going to play soccer, right? Two teams are going to play soccer. Well, of course, we have to agree that both teams have to follow the same rules. We can't let one team can use their hands and the other team cannot. Well, then that's not a game. It's not a fair game, right? It's the whole game would fall apart. Nobody would even want to play that game, right? No, you have two teams. The rules of soccer are the same for both teams. Equal treatment, right, under the rules, the law. Does it mean that both teams are equal, though? This is the problem now. When people talk about equality, they're not just talking about equal under the law. They're saying that every single person is the same. They mean same in every way. That everyone should be the same in every way and have the same outcome. So they mean when we're playing two teams come together, that the teams must also be equal in skill, equal in ability. And that ideally, the final score should be 0-0 or 1-1, right? The score should end up equal at the end. And if the score is not equal at the end, let's say Manchester United plays against, the American national team. Manchester United wins 6-0. Well, what happens now is a lot of the socialists, communists will say, "Oh, that's not fair. That's not equal. Manchester United is much better. Look, they've got more money. They've got better players." And then they'll start saying things. "Oh, we got to take away some of the good players from Manchester United. We got to take away some of their money. Maybe we change the rules so now the American team can use their hands, but Manchester United cannot." And they start trying to change all the rules and make special rules for one group and different rules for another group. They're trying to make the outcome, the final result, be equal. That is unnatural. This is exactly what Orwell was criticizing. Because people are not the same. Individuals are not the same. Groups are not the same. They have different strengths, different weaknesses, different desires, different energy levels, different health, different everything. So if you try to force them all to have an equal outcome, then, well, it always leads to mass murder. First, it leads to things like what is it, Alan? That Alan is saying. At first, it starts with censorship and kind of softer forms of control. Stealing money from some people, giving it to other people, changing the rules, saying, oh, this group needs to have more people, in being hired. This group needs to make more money. This group, now we got to make them make less money. This group, you can't talk about this, you can't say that, censorship. We'll see it in Animal Farm, because he very clearly describes how it happens, step by step. It doesn't start with mass murder, okay? They don't immediately just start killing lots of people. No, it starts with these small things first. Censorship, trying to stop free speech, taking from one group, attacking small groups of people first, and then it gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse until we do have mass murder and total control, and it is a horror. And every time we've seen it in history, if it hasn't been stopped at some point, if it's allowed to keep going the whole way, it's millions of people killed. It's hell on earth. Every attempt to create this utopia ends in hell because it's against nature. It's just unnatural. And they try to overcome nature. Eventually, they realize, well, we just got to start killing people. We have to use force. It's the only way. That's why it's evil. It sounds nice. Equality for everyone. We'll all be wonderful together and everyone will be rich. But the only way to do it, the only way to make it happen is to start putting people in jail and silencing them and eventually killing them. And then it still doesn't work, but then you just have lots and lots and lots of miserable people in a hellish group. All right, a couple more. There's people saying, thanks for doing this course. You're welcome. I think we've been going at the in this soon. This is going to be long. Just realized these are going to be long ones, huh? Okay, I think that's about it. All right, good enough. So, that's in the end of chapter 1, Animal Farm. Now, I encourage you to go back, read chapter 1 again. There are also a couple movies about Animal Farm. There's an old cartoon. My favorite is a cartoon from the 1950s. I think it's 1954. It's quite a nice cartoon that tells the whole story of Animal Farm. So you can watch that if you want to. I found it on Amazon.com. It's probably on other video websites as well. But videos are nice, movies are okay, but really reading is the best. Now, there is some vocabulary in here. It's a little difficult, but just use a dictionary, use an electronic dictionary. You don't need to understand every single word when you're reading. It's not necessary. You don't need to do it. Okay, you just need to get the big ideas. You'll learn some of the vocabulary. Some of it might be extra difficult. Don't worry about it. Just keep going. And that's it. So that's the end of chapter 1. Next weekend, we'll do chapter 2. We're going to be here next weekend?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So next week, we'll do chapter 2 of Animal Farm, George Orwell. You'll see the story moves very quickly, and we'll discuss that next week. So I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for joining the Effortless English Book Club. Hope you enjoyed the story. Hope you're enjoying Animal Farm. It's really a very powerful book. All right, you can always find me on Twitter and ask me more questions during the week. My Twitter is just my name, ajhoge. And as always, you can get my free audiobook at effortlessenglishclub.com or my book website, effortlessenglish.com. effortlessenglish.com. See you next week.